Episode 5 is called Halls of Stone, so we know this is going to be a lot of dwarf action. We open with King Durin, and he is taking a ring of power. In this scene, you've got the Sauron theme playing and you have whispering, and it all adds to the drama. It is taken by Na'vi to a group of dwarves who are working to try and restore the light to Khazad-dûm. Durin starts to explore the walls and the others waiting with bated breath. The king then tells them to dig a foundation wall, and they're saying no, because this could bring the mountain down, this is dangerous. And he's like, no, you must dig here. And there's like a bit of a tense standoff until the king then demands an axe. He's going to do the job himself. There's very little light in this scene. Another issue with quite a lot of dramas these days is the limited amount of light, and it makes it really hard for viewers to see the action. Because they're doing it for atmospheric reasons, but it does sort of pull you out a little bit when you can't see what's going on. It seems to be happening much too often these days. But I must say, in this particular scenario, having a little light is actually quite a good thing, because the effect of Durin smashing open and bringing the light back into Khazad-dûm works. And then suddenly they're like, wow, maybe there's something with this ring that can help us. And he goes to different areas and he goes, dig there, and they start listening to him. And suddenly you're getting the light returning back into the mountain, which obviously is going to put the stone singer noses out of joint, because it's normally them who sing to the mountain and talk to the mountain. And you can't help thinking that there's going to be a consequence for this. Next we travel to Celebrimbor's forge, where they are celebrating the creation of the Doors of Durin. It's a really lovely moment, everybody's celebrating. The only person who doesn't seem to be that impressed is Annatar. So Celebrimbor goes to find Annatar, and he apologises. I should have included you more in this. And Annatar's very cold with him. He said, that's not my problem. My problem is I'm worried about the world. And, yeah, you've been messing around with this door. In the meantime, the rings need making. So we see Annatar manipulating Celebrimbor to make sure that he does what he wants. Celebrimbor, on the other hand, is very firm that he doesn't feel he should be making any rings for men. Now, in the original story, all these rings were meant to be for the elves. It just so happened that because Annatar eventually claims all these rings back, that he distributes them to the dwarves and men. But they're doing it slightly differently here. They're saying that these next 9 rings are specifically for men. It's their fan fiction, it's how they want to do it. Celebrimbor believes that if the rings are made for men, that they could be more easily corrupted by the Dark Lord. Yeah, who do you think's contracted you to make the damn things? So Annatar pulls the big guns out and lists off Middle-earth top performing men as an example of why rings are going to be really important for Middle-earth. This convinces Celebrimbor that, you know, maybe it's a good idea, but do we need 9? I think he says that he feels that 9 is maybe a bit too many. And Annatar seemingly backs down, only to declare that he will make the rings himself. Okay, so we're now going to get on an eagle and we're going to travel over to the island of superhumans, Numenor, to see what they are up to. And what we find, of course, is Pharazôn, who has usurped Miriel's throne and is enjoying being a king, of course. And he's having a chat with his lovely son, Kemen. And they are having a very interesting conversation. Kemen obviously really keen on proving himself to his father. We get a sense of that in this conversation. Dad isn't that impressed. So he tells Kemen that his mother made a prophecy while she was nursing him that he would come to ill ends. And when Kemen asks a little bit more about this, Pharazôn states that he will tell Kemen what his mother said if he succeeds at this task that he's going to set him, which is interesting. My money's on him becoming the Witch King. And I think that would be great, actually. There's a very interesting thing that they could do here, especially with Kemen wanting to impress his father. I could see Anatar quite easily manipulating him and say, just put this little bit of bling on and you will be a powerful man and your father will be impressed and then you'll turn into the Witch King. Woo! That's my theory. You heard it here first. So now we move to Miriel's tower, where she's fully living the princess in the tower trope, and she's got Elendil with her, and he's telling her we'll be able to stir up rebellion. Don't worry, you're going to get your job back. And she's like, no, I don't want any trouble. And it's rather a touching moment, really. Miriel wants to keep the peace. She feels she's let people down by going off and fighting in Middle-earth. And so I think that she's carrying that responsibility, and maybe she feels that she deserves what's happened to her. I beg to differ on that. Guilt leaves her to think, no, I don't want any more war or people fighting each other. I'm going to keep the peace. I'm going to just accept how things are. She does ask him what he saw in the Palantir. He says he saw himself riding away from the city in flames. You get that flashback of that as well. So that gives you an idea of something that may happen in the future. Miriel, on the other hand, insists he goes to his ship. She wants him to be away where he's not going to be harmed. So he goes off to find his ship. In the meantime, he finds out that the Sea Guard are all being dismissed. It's basically because a lot of them are faithful, and if they won't swear fealty to Pharazôn, then they're going to lose their job. And so they would rather just hand in their weapons and their uniforms rather than kowtow to Pharazôn. So when Elendil finds this out, he demands to know who is behind all of this, and it turns out that it's his daughter Eowyn who is involved in this, and also Kemen. What a surprise. And so obviously he feels quite betrayed by her, and he hands in his sword and rank in front of her, and the men show Elendil a lot more respect, and they still call him their captain, and this completely embarrasses Kemen, who is trying to prove himself. And I think maybe it shames Eowyn a little bit, and one can only hope that there are some seeds being sown there and she might realise that she's not on the right side. But we'll see. And then Eowyn comes up with Valandil. Now, she's obviously got a bit of a soft spot for Valandil, because she sort of begs him and says, look, I'll get you taken off the list, you don't need to do this. But obviously Valandil insists on doing what Elendil's done. I think this really puts Kemen's nose out of joint, because obviously we know he's very into Eowyn, and makes you think that maybe if she finds out that her brother's still alive, that might be the catalyst that will turn her back to the faithful. I do wonder if Eowyn is going to be on a Tolkien-esque redemption arc. We'll have to see. We move away from the harbour and back to the Palantir room. And guess who's playing with the Palantir this time? No other than Pharazôn himself. So isn't it a little bit of do as I say, not as I do? Hop on the eagle and we fly away from Númenor, and we land in Lindon, where Gil-galad is having a look at Celebrimbor's dodgy letter. Oh, I've put away the forge and I'm not making any more rings. Next, he's at a strategy meeting with a female elf commander, and while she's talking about the forces of Mordor, Gil-galad gets a vision. Meanwhile, Elrond is hurrying back to Lindon with Galadriel's ring in order to make sure that it stays out of orcish hands. And then our lovely eagle takes us back to Khazad-dûm, where Durin and Disa are having a discussion about the effects of the ring on Durin and their concerns, because King Durin has now started putting really heavy taxes on people and hoarding wealth, and he feels a little bit like the gold sickness from The Hobbit, where after the dragon is killed, Thorin Oakenshield then gets the dragon sickness from the hoard, and he won't let anybody go near it. We have this sort of adorable moment where Disa's trying to buy a birthday present for her daughter, and she gets this orb thing, and then she drops it, and then it rolls all over the place, and she's trying to find it and catch it, and she ends up in this chamber where she can hear a very strange noise. Now, the chamber has a pool in it as well, so it could be what eventually becomes the Watcher, which is the creature in the pool outside the doors of Durin in Lord of the Rings, or could she have heard the Balrog? Then Durin decides that he wants to sell the other 6 rings to the other dwarf lords. Now, King Durin, you didn't have to pay for your ring, so why should the other dwarves have to pay for theirs? So Durin tries to warn his father about the creature that Disa's heard, but he doesn't want to know. He is completely under the ring's power. See what I did there? And he wants to delve deeper. And we all know where that's going to end up. Not in a good place. Now we hop over on the Eagle Airways back to Celebrimbor's Forge, and there's some stuff going down. There are tools moving around and everybody seems terrified. And then we discover that what's actually happened is that Mirdania has somehow ended up in the unseen world. Now, I find this interesting because if she is an Noldor elf, one has to presume that most of the elves, although I think there were some Sindar, most of the elves in Eregion were Noldor. Now, the Noldor elves were the exile elves that had gone to Valinor. They had seen the trees. They were infused with the light of the trees. At night, they were a bit glowy. And so if she had been an Noldor, she would have had access to the unseen anyway, like Glorfindel does, because in the books, it's not Arwen who turns up and she's all a bit glowy. No, it is Glorfindel. We've got to think here, then was she maybe a Sindar elf? I mean, she was blonde, but she wasn't golden haired. So I suppose there is a chance that she could have been maybe a Sindar or a Sindar Noldor mingling, as they call it. I don't think she's quite got the power to be a Noldor elf. I'm going to go with she's probably of the Sindar, but she's ended up in what we call the unseen, which is where powerful elves like Galadriel and that, they half live in the unseen as well as they live in the real world. Anyway, I think they managed to help Meldania, and she's very frightened. And who should turn up at the same time but Prince Durin. He has concerns about his father, and he's a little bit suspicious of Anatar, which he's every right to be. Good on you, Durin. We're behind you, mate. We know that Anatar is pretty dodgy. Later on, Anatar singles out Meldania and works his charm on her and implies that she's a little bit like Galadriel. And of course, that's gonna make her think, oh, he thinks I'm attractive. Dania, he may look like an angel, but he's certainly the devil in disguise. Eagle Airways is taking us back to Numenor. And we come to a really poignant moment, I think, in the whole Numenor story. So we've got Elendil and Valandil, and they're at this service for their family members. and it's a sacred ritual going on. And who should turn up but Kemen and his cronies? And they gate crash this ritual and they say, sorry, we're pulling down this temple because we're going to build a new viaduct. That was the excuse that they used to remove everybody from the temple. The priest gets arrested and there's a relic and he wants to hang on to the relic. And all descends into a fight in which Kemen and Valandil get into a very big fight with each other. Unfortunately, this results in the death of Valandil. It was really sad to see Valandil die. He's a nice character and he's very loyal and he didn't deserve that. Another nail in Kemen's coffin. Definitely Witch King material, I swear. Now, we hop back into Celebrimbor's forge and Celebrimbor and Anatar are quarrelling in front of the other smiths, and Anatar again twists everything around and messes with Celebrimbor's mind to get his way. Khazad-dûm, Durin's trying to reason with his father. He's telling him, this ring, please put it down, but instead King Durin restores Prince Durin's status. Disa, on the other hand, while she's pleased that Durin is back in the line of succession, she makes him promise never to wear that ring. And I can't help feeling that that promise at some point is going to be broken. So now Celebrimbor is laying down the law with the smiths. He's saying, look, we're not going to do this. You need to listen to me. But Anatar's already been working on the smiths. And they are starting to be manipulated into thinking that Celebrimbor doesn't know what he's talking about. And that he's overworked and maybe they shouldn't listen to him. And all the while this has been going on, the Orcs of Mordor are closing in on Eregion. Back in Lindon, Elrond has managed to reach safety and he seeks Gil-galad's help. So Galadriel, right at the end of this episode, is brought to the Orcish camp as a prisoner, and Adar says to her that he has not brought her here to be a prisoner. He has brought her here so that they can negotiate working together and see how well that works. I actually quite liked this episode. There were some really good moments in it, and I like the whole Anatar thing and how he's slowly manipulating everybody into creating the rings. The tension levels were really good in this episode. They were really raising the stakes. I was really sad to see Valandil get killed off. His death was really unfair, but I felt also it's kind of in line with the way that Tolkien kills off people who don't deserve to be killed off, such as Finduilas in the Silmarillion. She's an elven princess and it's in the Children of Húrin. I won't go into it too much, because I might discuss Children of Húrin in the future. The orcs basically pin her to a tree with a spear. I would have liked to have seen more camaraderie with Celebrimbor and Na'vi. I think that was really cut short. They're meant to be one of the best friendships between elf and a dwarf, barring Gimli and Legolas later on. But it felt like that wasn't done a lot of justice. So I feel they could have made a bit more of that. So 9 out of 10, because there were some really good bits in it. And let's hope that that would be the minimum standard for future episodes. We'll have to see, won't we? Anyway, I'm going to have to go because I'm going to run out of juice on this camera. So all that remains to be said is take care, look after yourselves and mind how you go. Till next time, bye.